Next, we need to discuss TCP and UDP ports. Keep in mind, I'm talking about the virtual ports, not the physical ports such as HDMI, display port, VGA port, Ethernet. These are the physical ports. I'm talking about the virtual ports. So think about the network port as like a door in a computer and device. These doors lift different application and services or even other devices to send and receive the data. They basically create a clear path so everything can communicate smoothly. That's why we need these ports to be open on the system. So each port has a special number, we call them port number. This number helps the device know which app or services the data is for, like delivering a package to the correct room in a big building. Suppose if you want to send a package to a building, and the building there are many rooms, so you need a room number so that they can deliver them to the right place, and that room number is like a port number. So if I go to Kali Linux, so in this system we have these ports open such as 21, 22, 23, 25, 53, port 80, 111, and these are the services. On 21 they are receiving the services for FTP. On port 22 they are receiving the services for SSH, and these are the TCP base. TCP and UDP we already discussed, and these are the services, and these are the port which is open and listening on this system 192.168.1.3 for these services. So these are the different room number for different services. So now port makes sure that the information goes to the right place without loss or mix up with other room number. So port number is a numerical identification assigned to a specific process or services. Process or services means like here we have FTP services, SSH services, telnet services, domain services, HTTP, HTTPS. These are called services. So allowing to distinguish between different type of network traffic, because now this server will be head for different services. How they will distinguish? By these port number, and they will deliver them to the right place. That's why we need these port number. So port help identify which application or services should be handle incoming data, such as for example HTTP traffic typically used for port 80. HTTPS is used for 443. Port number are 16-bit integer, which is range from 0 to 65,535. Keep in mind, this is the range of all TCP and UDP ports, and they facilitate the proper routing of data to the correct applications. So if we have an IP address, it will be with the port number as well, from 0 to 65535. So IP address with port. So if I go any of this, suppose this is the IP address. So we have IP address which is 88. Let me click on this one as better. My source IP 100.0.1.3. Destination is 88, but it require either TCP or UDP. In this case, we have UDP port. So this is the random port, we will discuss a bit later. And this is the destination port 53. So it require a port number as well. And every port number is allocated for different services. In this case, 53 is for DNS. So it means a numerical identifier, unique number that distinguish the port. And then connection to TCP or UDP protocol. This port can be either TCP or UDP. Routing of incoming and outgoing data, and then enable multiple applications to run on the same time in the same server. Like in this case, this server is handling on all these services and these port are open. Okay. Now let's discuss the port number range. As I said, the port range start from 065535. Okay. And if I go to the iana.org, here you will find all these port number from 0, which is TCP UDP, and here is all these up to this point, and then you can go to here to see all the details. Here is all the port number which you can find here easily. Okay, let's go back. So these are the range from 0 to 65535, which is a 16-bit identifier for the network services and application. Now these range is divided in 3 categories. From 0 to 1023, we call them well-known port number or system port number. 1024 till 49151, we call them register port number. And finally, we have 49152 to 65536. We call them dynamic private port or public port, whatever you call them. So basically, we have 3 categories. We divide these port number in 3 categories. Okay, well-known port, register port, and dynamic port. It start from 0 to 1023. They start from 1024 to 49151, and this is 49152 to 65536 dynamic port. So now we know this one. Suppose if we get an example of HTTP, okay, let's go back and let me access the HTTP from here again. Okay, and let me go to Wireshark. Okay, and let me type IP address, this one which I access. Okay, the first one is send and send acknowledgement and acknowledgement, but right now I'm interested in the port number. So this is the IP source 100.0.1.3 and destination is 192.168.1.3. I'm interested in TCP because this is a TCP base. Okay, HTTP is TCP base. Okay, now the client source port will be from this range, from the dynamic range. We just discussed dynamic range. Dynamic range start from 49152. Let's go to the Wireshark and see. Okay, so here the source port is 52646, 52564. So S5, yeah, it's coming under the dynamic port. Okay, that's why I mentioned this example. And here you can see the source port is from dynamic range and destination is the well-known port. Well-known port is in this category 0 to 1023, port 80. Okay, so this is the source port and this is the destination port. So keep in mind, so whenever the client connect to any destination port, any well-known port such as 22, 23, 24, whatever, port 80, 443. So the source port will be from the dynamic port and destination definitely will be from the well-known or whatever you configure them. So the source port is this was from the dynamic and destination was port 80. I just show you in the Wireshark. The server will respond from port 80. If I go back, so the server responds from port 80, now the source port 80 to the dynamic port. Okay, so keep in mind this is the working scenario of port. Now coming to some important port number and their services. 20 and 21 is a TCP base and this is used for FTP by default. 6768 is UDP. We use them for DHCP. 22 is TCP and is used for SSH. 53 is UDP as well and 53 can be a TCP as well. Some of the protocol is TCP and UDP base. One of them is DNS. So DNS is a TCP base as well and UDP as well. After that, we have 123, which is UDP used for NTP. We have 25, which is TCP for SMTP. 161, 162 is UDP base used for SNMP. Port 80 is TCP used for HTTP. 69 is UDP used for TFTP. 110 is TCP used for POP3. Similarly, 514 is UDP used for syslog. 143 is TCP used for IMAP. 1812 and 1813 is UDP used for radius. 443 is a TCP and used for HTTPS services. 137, 138 is UDP used for NetBIOS. 465 is TCP used for SMTPS. 500 is UDP used for IKE and VPN. 53 is TCP used for DNS, and also 53 is UDP used for DNS. 4500 is UDP net reversal, and 3389 is a TCP and used for RDP. 520 is UDP and used for RIP. These are the daily based protocol I mentioned. If you need the list, so you can go to this website and you can see all the list. Like I mentioned 20 and 21. So here is 20 is for FTP and 21 is also for FTP. This is 21. 22 is SSH. 23 is Telnet. Similarly, 25 is SMTP. So I take the the daily base protocol. So at least you know these one. Here is the list. So I already show you. These are the list. Some of them are UDP. Some of them are TCP. Now, how you can see that to monitor that which services are listening. So for that, in Windows you can use netstate, okay, and Linux. If I go to Linux, so in the Linux you can use the new command, which is ss. If I go here and type ss, so you can see the same thing. Similarly, in Mac OS you can use lsof to find out the active connection, okay, and their associated port number. In Windows we are using a netstate, and even netstate can be used in Linux as well, but it's been replaced with ss command. Besides this, you can change the default port number for most services. It is also possible. These are the default port which we talk about. Like HTTP, we can use 80 port, yeah. Where is the port 80? Yeah, here is HTTP. But you can change them to suppose port 8080. Yes, it's possible. So you can change the default port number for most services by modifying the configuration file. It depends on the application, which application is running and how to modify the port number. Similarly, suppose SSH we can listen on 22 port, we can change them to 222. And like in Linux, you can go to the configuration file, you can change. And if you have another application, window or something, so you need to follow the different process to modify the configuration file and change the port number from the default one to the new one. So it's also possible. However, if you change the port number, so make sure to allow them in the firewall, the new updated one. However, the new firewall is application based. So if you allow SSH, so it should work directly. However, some firewall is configured to you can modify that SSH is listening, suppose not by default port, is listening on suppose 2222 something, okay. So it's also possible. So if two applications try to use the same port number on the same device, there will be conflict. So now we know the port number, we know TCP and UDP, we know that the port are divided in 3 categories. We also say that you can modify the default port number. Now coming to, if you have two applications and is listening on the same device and same port number, it will be conflict and it will not work. Typically one or both application will be failed to function correctly. One of them you need to change the port number. So suppose if I go to my window, if I have a window, so by default SSH is listening on port 22 here. So let me log into this window to show you quickly that there will be conflict, and it will show you that it will not work. One of the application you need to change the port number. So this is also possible to change the default port number, but keep in mind that never give the same port number to two different application or services. So if I go here, so I already have SSH. Okay, so let me open this application and let me assign the same port number. Okay, they say the specific address is already in use. Okay, I change the port number from here to 222. Let me apply and okay. And if I run this one, because I already running SSH, so if I try to start this SSH, so say the error starting SSH, the specific address is already in use, because I'm already running an SSH services which I enable from the applications. Either I need to change the port number here to something else, maybe 2223, but keep in mind that no other application is listening on this port number. And when you click OK, so then it's possible that you can start this application. So that's why I mentioned this point. We already discussed that you can change the default port number, and these are the things. So this was all about the TCP and UDP port number, the ranges and division of this port number and 3 different groups, and that's it, and how it is work.